Welcome to Month 1 of the Senior Copilot Studio admin track. Over the next 4 hours, we're going to build the foundation that every administration decision you make for the next 6 months will rest on. If you don't understand how Copilot Studio sits within the Power Platform architecture, and how the Admin Center gives you control over that architecture, every governance problem you encounter will feel like an emergency rather than a manageable configuration task. This session is technical and hands-on. We'll cover the architecture stack, walk every major section of the Admin Center, work through a real-world case study, and by hour 3, you'll be building environments in a live tenant. By hour 4, you'll present your environment strategy to the group. 4 hours, 4 focus blocks. Hour 1 is all about the architecture, understanding where Copilot Studio lives within the platform stack, what dependencies exist, and what that means for you as an admin. We anchor the theory in a real case study. Meridian Financial Services, a 3,000-person firm that learned expensive governance lessons you don't have to repeat. Hour 2 is the Admin Center deep dive. We'll go tab by tab, manage, security, Copilot monitor, deployment, licensing, so you know exactly where to go when something breaks or when auditors come knocking. You'll do a hands-on scavenger hunt in your own developer tenant. Hour 3 is where you build. Create environments, configure Dataverse, link intra-security groups, set governance flags in PowerShell. Hour 4 is validation and presentations. You run PowerShell audits, verify your configuration, and present your strategy to the group. 5 objectives that build on each other. First, explain the architecture stack. Understanding how Copilot Studio depends on Power Platform, Dataverse, Microsoft 365, and Azure is not academic. Every outage and every governance gap traces back to one of those dependency layers. Second, navigate every Admin Center tab. By the end of this session, you will know exactly what each section controls and where to go when something needs attention. Third, design a multi-environment strategy for a regulated enterprise. This is where administration becomes architecture, trial versus production, lifecycle operations, conversion paths. This is the decision framework you'll apply to every enterprise engagement. Fourth, configure the tenant licensing model. Credits, session capacity, per-user licenses. Understanding how they interact prevents the most common and most embarrassing admin failure. A production chatbot that goes silent because the tenant ran out of Copilot credits mid-quarter. Fifth, apply role-based access controls and governance flags. Tenant admin, environment admin, agent author, allow ad hoc subscriptions. The controls that separate a well-governed tenant from a sprawling mess of ungoverned environments. Let's build the stack from the bottom up, because every layer introduces admin responsibilities you need to understand. At the foundation are Azure services. Azure OpenAI service provides the generative AI capabilities, the GPT-4 completions that power intelligent agents. Azure Bot service handles channel routing, delivering agents to Teams, Outlook, or custom web surfaces. Azure Application Insights feeds the telemetry that appears in the Monitor tab. When AI completions behave unexpectedly, or when the Monitor tab shows anomalous API call volumes, the root is often in this layer. Above that is Microsoft 365 integration. Agents are surfaced in Teams, SharePoint, and Outlook. The Microsoft 365 licensing model controls which users can interact with published agents, not the Power Platform license. This is a frequent source of confusion for new admins. Layer 3 is Dataverse, the relational data store and security model underpinning every production Copilot Studio environment. Conversation logs, entity data, solution packages all live in Dataverse. An environment without Dataverse is limited. No solution-based deployment, no full agent capabilities. Layer 2 is Power Platform. Copilot Studio does not have its own environment model or its own DLP engine. It shares everything: environment lifecycle, connector catalog, data loss prevention with Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Pages. That means a single admin center governs the entire estate. And at the top, Layer 1, Copilot Studio itself, the authoring and runtime surface for conversational agents, delivered as managed SaaS within the Power Platform boundary. The admin impact is real at every layer. Dataverse means you manage storage capacity and security roles. Microsoft 365 means you coordinate license assignments with the Microsoft 365 admin. Azure means you monitor open AI service health and API quotas. You are not administering a single product. You are administering a layered platform. Let's make all of this concrete. Meridian Financial Services, 3,000 employees, a financial services firm, and a cautionary tale that almost every large Power Platform tenant eventually tells some version of. The first failure point: no environment lifecycle policy. 30 trial environments were created ad hoc over 6 months. Nobody tracked expiration dates. 8 of those environments expired during active projects, not at the end of projects during them. Work was lost, deadlines were missed. The second failure point: Copilot credits exhausted. The tenant pool was consumed by ungoverned agents, demos, experiments, proofs of concept that were never decommissioned. The production customer-facing chatbot stopped responding mid-quarter. The business found out when customers complained. The third failure point: allow ad hoc subscriptions was left set to true. Any employee could self-sign up for a trial license, bypassing procurement, bypassing the IT request process, bypassing every governance control the organization thought it had. The fourth failure point: no Dataverse on the default environment. Makers built agents in default without Dataverse, creating a ceiling on what those agents could do. When they needed solution-based deployment, they couldn't, the foundation wasn't there. The governance remediation that followed was expensive. A standardized naming convention, a capacity monitoring runbook, an environment lifecycle policy, a self-sign-up lockdown. All of it is work that should have been done before the first environment was created. This is what month 1 gives you, the knowledge to avoid the Meridian situation entirely. The Power Platform Admin Center is your primary control plane. 6 tabs, each with a distinct purpose. Manages your environment and resource inventory. Create, backup, restore, copy, reset, and delete environments, manage connectors, and apply DLP policies. This is where day-to-day environment operations happen. Security handles identity and access. Assign tenant admin and environment admin roles. Link intra-security groups to environments, and review guest user restrictions. There is an important product limitation here we will cover in detail shortly. Copilot is your agent governance surface, a cross-environment view of every published agent in the tenant, with usage analytics and orphaned agent detection. Monitor is observability, activity logs, capacity consumption, API call telemetry. The replacement for the deprecated Co-e-Starter Kit inventory and usage modules. If someone asks who deleted an environment or changed a DLP policy, the Monitor tab is where you find the answer. Deployment handles pipelines, deployment pipelines, solution versions, environment promotion gates. The governance layer for your agent release process. Licensing is capacity management, Copilot credit balance, session capacity, per-user license assignments, and add-on capacity allocation. If you are not checking this tab weekly in a production tenant, you are one bad quarter away from a Meridian-style incident. The Manage tab is where you perform environment operations. The subtleties matter. System backups run automatically every 24 hours. Manual point-in-time backups can be triggered before major deployments. Restore targets must be the same or lower capacity as the source. The reset operation wipes all Dataverse data and reinstalls, treat it as a last resort. Delete has a 7-day soft delete window, after which recovery is impossible. Connector governance in the Manage tab gives you a cross-environment view of which connectors are active. This is the baseline you need before authoring DLP policies in month 2. One critical note about the default environment: it cannot be deleted, and it is visible to all users in the tenant. Your governance strategy for default must focus on restriction, disable environment creation for regular users. Apply the most restrictive DLP policy you have, and monitor it aggressively. Anything built in default is ungoverned until you actively govern it. The Security tab operates at two scopes. Tenant Admin, assigned in Intra as Global Admin or Power Platform Admin, sees every environment in the tenant. Environment Admin is scoped to a specific environment. That administrator manages one environment's security roles, backups, and settings, and cannot see other environments. The Intra Security Group linking feature lets you scale role assignment without adding individual users. Link a security group, manage membership in Intra, and access provisioning is handled automatically. Guest user restriction is a hard product limitation. Intra B2B guest accounts cannot access Copilot Studio under any license combination, as of May 2026. There is no workaround. When a business unit says an external consultant needs to use an agent, the answer is that direct Copilot Studio access is not available for guest users. Architectural alternatives are needed. The Copilot tab is your governance surface for the agent estate. The agent inventory gives you a cross-environment view of every published agent, filterable by environment, status, and last activity date. Orphaned agents, agents still running but never interacted within months, surface clearly here. Before you go to your next budget conversation, pull this report. Every orphaned agent is consuming capacity that could be allocated elsewhere. Usage analytics in the Copilot tab show sessions, messages, escalation rate, and resolution rate per agent. Export to CSV, and you have the raw data for a capacity planning report. Ungoverned agent detection identifies any agent without an environment admin-linked owner. These agents appear with no owner tag and need assignment before your next audit cycle. The Monitor tab is your observability surface. Activity logs record every admin action, environment creation and deletion, DLP policy changes, role assignments. Retention is 90 days. If your compliance requirements demand longer retention, export to a SIEM or storage account. Capacity consumption in the Monitor tab shows Copilot credit burn rate and API call volume per environment. Configure an alert at 80% capacity. At 80%, you have time to purchase additional capacity or reallocate. At 100%, the production chatbot has already stopped responding. API call telemetry per connector category is the diagnostic surface for unexpected behavior. If an agent starts generating an anomalous volume of API calls to a connector, this is where you see it before it becomes a billing problem. Not all environments are equal. Understanding the 5 environment types and their lifecycle operations is what separates reactive administration from a managed governance practice. Production environments include Dataverse, full Copilot Studio capability, and no expiration. Every live workload must live in a production environment. Sandbox environments have the same capabilities, no expiration, and can be reset, all Dataverse data wiped and reinstalled, making them ideal for UAT cycles, where you need a clean slate between test runs. Developer environments are personal environments for individual agent authors, full capability, no expiration. One developer environment per maker is the standard pattern, keeping their experiments isolated from shared environments. Trial environments have 30-day expiration with full capability while active. The expiration risk is the critical piece. Trials do not warn you loudly when approaching expiration. A project team that starts a trial, does 6 weeks of work, and discovers the environment expired 2 weeks into the project has learned an expensive lesson. Convert trials to developer or sandbox environments as soon as the proof of concept phase is validated. The default environment has optional Dataverse, limited Copilot Studio capability, and no expiration. It is a governance risk. Do not build in default, restrict it. Lifecycle operations available through the Admin Center and PowerShell. Create, backup, restore, copy, reset, and delete. The copy operation duplicates a configured environment. Full copy includes all data. Minimal copy includes only structure and configuration. The 7-day soft delete window after deletion is your safety net. After 7 days, the environment and its data are permanently and irrecoverably gone. The licensing model for Copilot Studio has 3 distinct components, and confusing them is the root cause of most capacity incidents. Copilot credits are pooled at the tenant level, consumed per agent session regardless of which user triggered the conversation. Credits apply specifically to generative AI calls, the GPT-4 completions via Azure OpenAI. The critical risk is that credits exhaust silently. There is no automatic service throttle or warning at the point of exhaustion in the default configuration. The service simply stops generating AI responses. This is why Monitor tab alerts configured at 80% are not optional. The per-user license, the Copilot Studio user license, is assigned to individual makers and admins. It is required to author and publish agents. An important distinction: frontline workers who only interact with published agents do not need a maker license. License costs scale with your maker population, not your end-user population. Session capacity applies to the orchestration engine, separate from credits. Each build session equals 1 conversation turn block. Unused sessions do not roll over at the end of the billing period. Both credits and session capacity must be provisioned independently. Provisioning one without the other produces a degraded or non-functional service. For a 3,000 user organization, the capacity planning question is: how many makers, how many active agents, and what is the projected session volume per month? The break-even analysis comparing tenant credits to per-user licensing at scale will shape your licensing recommendation, and it is one of your month 1 assessment deliverables. 3 administrative tiers, each with a distinct scope and capability boundary. Tenant admin is assigned an intra as global admin or Power Platform admin. This role has full control: every environment, every DLP policy, all capacity, all tenant settings. The blast radius of a compromised tenant admin account is the entire Power Platform estate. These accounts require privileged access management, multi-factor authentication, and just-in-time elevation. Environment admin is scoped to a specific environment. This role manages that environment's security roles, backups, and environment-level settings. It cannot see other environments. It cannot see tenant-level licensing. This is the role you assign to the team responsible for a specific workload. They get the autonomy they need without the risk of tenant-wide impact. Agent author is a Dataverse security role assigned within an environment. It grants the ability to create and edit agents, nothing more. No environment settings, no admin center tabs, no access outside the Dataverse environment. This is the role for makers, the people authoring agents, not administering the platform. The permission matrix defines exactly where the boundaries are. Creating environments and configuring DLP policies are tenant admin-only operations. Backup and restore are available to both tenant admin and environment admin. Assigning security roles within an environment is available to both. Creating agents is available to all 3 roles. When a support ticket arrives saying a user cannot perform a specific operation, the permission matrix tells you immediately whether they have the right role or need escalation. Allow ad hoc subscriptions is the single most important tenant governance flag you will configure in a regulated organization. It controls whether users can self-sign up for trial licenses without going through IT procurement. In a regulated financial services or healthcare organization, that is a compliance problem. Procurement processes exist for audit and control reasons. There are 2 PowerShell modules with similar flag names, and the distinction matters. Set Power App tenant settings with allow ad hoc subscriptions, set to false controls Power Platform trial self-sign-up only. Set TMSOL company settings with allow ad hoc subscriptions, set to false applies to all Microsoft 365 self-sign-up, a broader scope and more restrictive scope. In most regulated organizations, the right approach is to use the Power Apps module for platform-specific governance and the MS Online module for tenant-wide lockdown. Document which flag you applied and why. The choice has compliance implications, and auditors will ask. Governance flags are set once audit regularly controls. Set them during tenant provisioning. Document the decision in your governance policy, and verify them quarterly to confirm they have not been changed. Now we assemble everything into a governance architecture, the multi-environment strategy for a regulated enterprise. 3 environments, 3 distinct purposes. Development is a developer-type environment for agent authoring and connector testing. Agent author role only, no production data, fully isolated. Sandbox and UAT is a sandbox-type environment for integration testing, user acceptance testing, and pre-production validation. Environment admin plus test users, with anonymized test data, no real customer data in a non-production environment. Production is the production-type environment for live workloads and billable capacity. Environment admin for read access, tenant admin for operational changes, full Dataverse with a backup schedule enforced. Naming convention is not cosmetic, it is governance infrastructure. A consistent pattern of organization, purpose, region, and environment allows every admin action to be immediately contextualized. When you are reading an activity log entry, a clear naming convention tells you immediately which environment was affected and what its purpose is. Inconsistent names are a governance liability. The trial to production promotion path follows a specific sequence. When a proof of concept in a trial environment is approved for production use, first convert the trial to sandbox or developer. Validate in the sandbox environment, then deploy via an OM pipeline to production. Never build directly in a trial environment with the intention of promoting it to production. The environment type must change before it becomes a production dependency. PowerShell is how you validate your configuration at scale. The Admin Center UI tells you what the tenant looks like right now. PowerShell lets you script, audit, and automate that validation. Module installation and authentication are prerequisites for the hands-on challenge. You install the Microsoft Power Apps Administration PowerShell module, then use Add Power Apps account to authenticate with your tenant credentials. The core audit commands. Getadmin Power App Environment returns all environments in the tenant name, type, Dataverse status, region, creation date. This is your ground truth for the environment inventory. Getadmin Power App Environment with a specific environment name returns the full detail record. Getadmin Power App Environment Role Assignment returns the role assignments for an environment. Who has what access? Expressed in machine-readable form. After setting Allow Ad Hoc Subscriptions, immediately verify it with Get Power App Tenant Settings. Governance controls that were configured incorrectly create a false sense of security that is worse than no governance control at all. Export your audit output as JSON. The assessment requires the PowerShell output as a deliverable, not screenshots, not a narrative description. The machine-readable output proves that your configuration matches your design document, and it is auditable by anyone who inherits your tenant. In this workshop exercise, you navigate to 5 specific items across the 4 admin portals using your developer tenant. First, the Licensing tab. Find your tenant Copilot credit balance, record the total allocation and the current consumption percentage. This tells you where the tenant stands against its capacity right now. Second, the Manage tab. Count your active environments. Identify any trial environments and their expiry dates. In a clean developer tenant, this should be minimal. In a production tenant you have inherited, this is where the governance surprises begin. Third, the Security tab. Confirm your own role assignment. You should see Tenant Admin or Power Platform Admin for your account. If you do not, the hands-on challenge in Hour 3 requires admin privileges and you need to resolve this before starting. Fourth, the Copilot tab. View the agent inventory. Note how many agents exist and which environments they belong to. Fifth, the Monitor tab. Find the activity log and identify the most recent admin action and who performed it. The 4 portal addresses you need are admin, Power Platform, Microsoft. Com for the Power Platform Admin Center Admin, Microsoft. Com for the Microsoft 365 Admin Center Intra, Microsoft. Com for Microsoft Intra and Copilot Studio, Microsoft. Com for the Copilot Studio portal itself. The hands-on challenge puts everything together. Using your developer tenant, you build the environment strategy that Meridian Financial Services should have had in place from day one. Step 1. Create development and production environments using the Manage tab. Enable Dataverse on both and apply the Meridian naming convention. Naming conventions need to be habitual. Every environment you create from this point forward should follow a consistent pattern. Step 2. Link an intra-security group to each environment in the Security tab and assign appropriate roles. Agent Author for development, Environment Admin for production. This access model scales to a 3,000-person organization without becoming an administrative burden. Step 3. Set allow ad hoc subscriptions to false using Set Power App Tenant settings in PowerShell. Then verify with Get Power App Tenant settings. Do not assume the command ran correctly. Always verify governance controls after applying them. Step 4. Run the PowerShell environment audit. Execute getadmin power app environment and export the JSON output. Verify that environment names, types, and security group ID match what you designed. Step 5. Document your environment record. The documentation deliverable is not optional. It represents 25% of the assessment, and it is the artifact that outlives the session. These 4 pitfalls come from real support tickets and real production incidents. Knowing them in advance is the difference between a 5-minute fix and a 3-hour investigation. Using a personal Microsoft 365 account instead of a developer tenant means you do not have global admin or Power Platform admin rights. Administrative operations in the admin center will fail silently. The portal loads, but nothing completes. If you are not enrolled in the Microsoft 365 developer program, enroll at developer. Microsoft.com/Microsoft 365/dev program. Trial environments expire after exactly 30 days with no extension and no grace period. A project team that starts a trial environment in week 1 of a 6-week project and forgets to convert it arrives at week 5 to find a dead environment. Convert trials to developer or sandbox environments as soon as the proof of concept is validated. The Allow Ad Hoc Subscriptions flag exists in 2 PowerShell modules. Set Power App Tenant settings governs Power Platform trials only. Set Temsol Company settings governs all Microsoft 365 self-signup. Applying the wrong one produces a governance gap that appears controlled but is not. Document which flag was applied and why. Guest user Copilot Studio access errors are not a misconfiguration. Intra B2B guest users cannot access Copilot Studio. This is a hard product limitation as of May 2026. No workaround exists. The answer for a business unit that needs external access is guest-to-member conversion or an architectural workaround through a public-facing channel. Finally, Co-e-Starter Kit references appear widely in older blog posts and documentation. The kit is deprecated. The native monitor and Copilot tabs in the Admin Center replaced its inventory and usage modules in 2025. Do not install the Co-e-Starter Kit in a new tenant. 4 deliverables, equal weight, each testing a different dimension of what you covered today. The Environment Strategy Design document is your architecture artifact, a diagram, a justification for the environment types you chose, your naming conventions, and your lifecycle decisions. This is the document you would hand to a new admin who inherits your tenant. The working environment configuration is your proof of execution, a step-by-step setup record with screenshots, and the PowerShell validation output as a JSON file. Both are required. Either one alone is an incomplete submission. The licensing and capacity plan is your financial model, an allocation table mapping environments to credit and session quotas, and a break-even analysis for a 3,000 user organization. What does it cost to run one production agent at scale? At what user volume does the tenant license become more economical than per-user licensing? The governance policy documentation is your compliance artifact, the role matrix, the tenant settings record, the allow ad hoc subscriptions decision with its rationale, and the validation checklist. Every governance decision that was made and why it was made. In Hour 4, 2 volunteers present their environment strategy to the group for structured peer feedback. Each presenter gets 10 minutes and a rubric-guided review. If you present, you finish month 1 with a reviewed and validated environment strategy ready for submission. 3 required reading items for this month. The Administer Microsoft Copilot Studio Learning Path on Microsoft Learn, Modules 1 and 2, is the canonical Microsoft source for admin procedures. Everything covered in this session is grounded in those modules. The Power Platform Admin Center documentation covers the UI and API in detail. The licensing overview for Microsoft Copilot Studio is your reference for the credits versus session capacity model. Bookmark it, because licensing terms change periodically and you need the current version. The Power Apps Administration PowerShell module documentation covers every CMDlet used in today's challenge and many more. Build your own operational runbook from it. A runbook that is specific to your organization's tenant configuration. 4 portal bookmarks to maintain: Admin, Power Platform, Microsoft; Com Admin, Microsoft; Com Intra, Microsoft; Com and Copilot Studio, Microsoft; Com. These are your operational control surfaces, and they should be immediately accessible when an issue arises. Month 1 is complete. You've covered the architectural foundation, navigated the full admin center, built environments in a live tenant, and started your governance documentation. Submit your 4 deliverables before Month 2 begins. The specifics are in your challenge brief. Month 2 is where governance goes deeper. DLP policies and connector governance. Everything you configured today in the Manage and Security tabs becomes the baseline for the DLP authoring and connector classification work ahead. If your environments are not correctly typed and your security groups are not correctly assigned, Month 2 will surface those gaps quickly. The architecture stack, the admin center, the licensing model, the RBAC framework. This is the foundation. Build on it.